Hello, I'm Todd Smith, and this is your Appellate Tip of the Week. This week's tip is automated certificates of service are coming. The Office of Court Administration, in conjunction with the folks at the Supreme Court of Texas, have been beta testing an automated certificate of service that will eventually replace the certificates of service that we as lawyers are required to put in our documents whenever we serve documents on opposing parties in counsel in trial courts or appellate courts. Now, these automated certificates have been rolled out. The Supreme Court is using them. A number of the courts of appeals are now using them, if not all the courts of appeals, and now several trial courts are using them. And from what I understand, the Travis County District Courts will have these available starting next week. So this is something that you will, if you're a trial lawyer, you will start seeing in your own documents. If you're an appellate lawyer, you've already probably noticed them and wondered, what in the heck are these? Well, here's a very brief explanation. So the idea here is for courts and parties to be able to track who actually got a document that was served. And so I've pulled up a couple of documents just to use as examples of where these automated certificates of service have appeared, and then we'll just talk about those really briefly. Here we have a matter in the Supreme Court of Texas. This is a motion for extension of time to file a merits brief. It looks pretty routine as you scroll through it, but what you will notice here, the traditional certificate of service still appears here as normal. But if you go on past that, you see this page that's been appended to the main document. Counsel, my friend James Hatchett, who is my opposing counsel in this case, did not do anything to add this to the document. It was added by the processing system automatically. So when I got the document as being served on me by James, the automated certificate of service here appeared in the document. So what does it show? It shows James filed the document, the date and time it was submitted, the other lawyers who received copies of it, so James, Sean Breen, and folks at their firm, some other folks that were designated as case contacts. You see these folks down here, Dan Byrne and Leslie Gilstrap. And then the service copies here, the case party lawyers or representatives, and it shows me down here. I'm lead counsel for the respondent. And so you can look and see there's a timestamp. It identifies who was served and indicates that it was sent. So this provides evidence on top of the ordinary certificate of service that you see here that James signed, that the e-filing system accepted the filing or processed the filing and then sent it to me at my designated email address as I'm supposed to have for purposes of e-filing. I can show you real quickly another one that looks very similar to this. This is a motion for extension of time that was filed in the 14th court in one of my matters. This was filed last week. So it looks like a normal motion that you see here, but the same thing. The automated certificate of service is appended here toward the end. And same bits of information. It shows who the filer was, their email address, date and time submitted, and it shows who else received the document. So the question has come up as folks have started to notice these. Well, does this mean I don't have to submit a certificate of service in my documents anymore? And the answer to that is no. Until there's a rule change, there will be a rule change required to make this effective so that lawyers no longer have to include certificates of service in their trial court documents or in their appellate court documents because the rules still require it. But My suspicion is once this gets fully tested and rolled out, and it's, as I said, it's underway, we'll see it in pretty much every case, every court. And once the clerk's office in OCA gets comfortable with the fact that it's working correctly and it's doing the job it's supposed to do, I think we'll see a movement toward some rule changes that will do away with the manual insertion of a certificate of service and updating of that information. Another handy use for this is courts are starting to use it to send out copies of their orders. And so, or courts are starting to use rather the e-filing system to do that, just for clarification. And by submitting the orders through the e-filing system, it does a couple of things. One is it brings the order into the system so that it will show up in Research Texas. That's a topic of another video. But the other thing is that it demonstrates to the court, by looking at the same information that shows up at the end here, it confirms and provides proof that the parties received the order. So it adds a level of certainty for the courts as well. So be on the lookout for possible rule changes. But in the meantime, know that automated certificates of service are out there, they're coming, and they can really help provide certainty to litigants. If there's ever any question about whether someone received a copy of the document that was served on them, the automated certificate of service should answer that question definitively. That's it for this week's tip. We'll see you next time.